Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's edition of RE312, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called On How Humans Beat the Microgravity Problem of Space Travel, written by KCP-RTV. Nixma floated in her harness as the ship began docking procedures, forwarded by the humans. She looked out the cockpit's tiny window at the expanse of the human ship. It was odd. Not only because of its size, considerably larger than most exploration ships of her own people, but also due to the clearly noticeable ideas of up and down. In space, there was no gravity, so most species built their ships without regard for planetary comforts. In fairness, most species that traveled between the stars had crews no larger than a dozen, and even these were rare. After all, everyone knew that after a few months in space, it would be hard to return to the confines of gravity. After a number of years, the usual time frame for interstellar travel, it was impossible without gruesome, often dangerous therapy and medication. Most long-term crews didn't bother returning, confining themselves to life in the void. Colonists were kept in cryosleep until planetfall, and usually a while after for their bodies to get used to the pull of the planet again. With a career path that usually meant no offspring and sparse contact with others, only the desperate, foolhardy, or more often than not, both took the jobs. Nixma chose this career out of desperation. She liked it well enough, especially when meeting newcomers to the galactic stage, if it could be even called that. As most species shared the same biological needs, they shared the limitations of their bodies as well. And so to find a species who sent hundreds, or at least claimed they did, on an exploration ship, she wondered if the reports of their species being planetary dwellers as well were a lie. She was brought out of her reverie by a low basso voice coming from a com, and had the robotic twinge caused by translators trying to approximate the speaker. "Untar Explorer, this is the human exploration ship Sawyer. We have difficulty linking our attitude software to your devices. Please rotate your ship 23 degrees right and your inclination 12 degrees up to align with our AGG. Nixma did so, jolting slightly in her harness as the little puffs of nitrogen rotated her ship. She wondered what the last expression was. She never heard the term used before, or why it would require her to rotate the ship. It's not like it mattered how she was oriented. Unless... no. Impossible, she thought, especially not from the species that joined a truly spacefaring species less than a generation ago. As she finished orienting her ship according to the request, she saw the expanse of the alien vessel. It was huge, easily 250 meters long and 50 meters high and wide. Compared to a tiny one-person capsule, it was insanely large. As the ship neared the location the humans designated as docking location, on what was clearly the left side of the ship, she saw the hull opening. Makes sense, she thought. With a ship this size, it'd be easy to accommodate other exploration vessels inside rather than fiddle about with finding a workable docking configuration. As her ship floated inside the cavernous hull, she looked around, curious. Numerous smaller vessels were docked here. She could vaguely guess some of them were miners, others presumably exploration skiffs and landing ships. Weirdly, all of them were on one side of the room. Nor was clearly the deck. Why would they waste space? Even on a ship this size, it made no sense to not use all the decking surrounding the bay. Alien weirdness. As her ship puffed to a stop, she saw a number of humans in bulky spacesuits walked, clearly using magnetic boots of some form, slowly towards her ship. They spread a net above her vessel and gently pulled it, securing it to the deck below. The bay doors closed, and through her ship's hull, she could hear air filling the large compartment. She was chosen for this mission as a welcome committee to the humans partially because they shared the oxygen-breathing trait, a bipedal form and, on the humans' request, weirdly, similar gravity needs. The voice in the comm returned, "Pilot Ixma, do not leave your pilot's chair for a while. We've learned it's much easier on long-term explorers if we come help you out ourselves." Before she could ask why, the voice disconnected. Her ship noted that it had been connected to a larger vessel intercom system. Shortly after the request, the ship-wide communication was sent. "All hands prepare for AGG initialization in 30 seconds. As we have guests aboard, we'll be going to lunar standard for the duration of the visit. She wondered what those words meant. Looking outside, she noticed that all the humans who busied themselves around the bay as one moved towards the apparent floor, attached themselves to it, and then put one knee on the floor, seemingly bracing themselves. And then, to her absolute bewilderment, she felt the pull of gravity. Some species built their ships around thrust gravity. That was true, but they were few and far between, as it meant constant use of fuel which was too wasteful for any long-haul vessels. To do it with a ship this size was a decadence that she could not believe. Looking at her dashboard, she stared in shock. They were not moving. Well, they were moving, everything in space does, but they were not accelerating from the extremely high, again an odd request from the humans, orbit around the diplomatic world. How could this be? Two humans holding what seemed to be a gurney walked in. They were very careful to not step on anything that looked like it would not hold their weight against what she guessed was about a fifth of her home planet's gravity. They seemed extremely focused on their task and slightly clumsy. At first, she thought that it was due to being used to working in free fall, but their movements seemed wrong. Then she realized it was the other way around. They were used to working in a much higher pull. Amazing. As they gently moved her aching body from the harness into the gurney, apologizing all the way for the discomfort, she pondered what this revelation could mean to the spacefaring species. Gravity on a ship. A number of hours had passed as her body adjusted to the pull of the ship, whose design now made perfect sense. Finally, she met with one of the diplomats on the vessel, shared pleasantries, made small talk. Finally, the human whose name she couldn't try to pronounce finally laughed and spoke about what she was so keen to learn. "I'll be honest, miss, you're the fifth explorer we've welcomed aboard. Every one of the previous four didn't even wait to get off their ships before asking about the AGG. I'm most curious if your response will be just as different." He said the last thing with a wry smile. "AGG," Ixma said slowly, pronouncing each of the oddly shaped words. "That's what makes your ship have gravity, isn't it? And what was the reaction of the other visitors that you find so amusing?" "Indeed. It's an acronym that stands for apparent gravity generators. As for the other visitors, let's see." The human put his hand forward and extended a finger at a time, slowly spoke. "The visitor from the Martian fled to his ship and nearly vented our entire atmosphere trying to disengage his ship. As well as the Bidderite fainted on the spot. The vert shed all of her feathers in an instant, apparently a genetic leftover from when they hunted on their home world, and a terrible response. Gave our doctors quite a headache, that one. So, shall we see how you fare?" he asked, with a clear amusement in his voice. "I am fearless, a proud member of a species of hunters. You seem perfectly sane and calm, so why would I react that way to a piece of information that can change the face of space travel for everyone? Lay it on me," Ixma said, in a challenging voice, looking straight into the eyes of the alien. "Very well. The AGG is a series of miniature black holes positioned within the keel of the ship. You've not noticed the fluctuations of gravity since we've spent all the time in the medical bay, which is one of the generators directly below us." Pointing down, he finished. "About 5 meters that way." For a split second, she didn't process what the human just said. It was madness. "Oh, I see," was all she could muster saying, before passing out once again. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vitmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.